Saturday to you. I didn't have to use my four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive Honda Element today. I just drove right in. It was dry out here. Nice clean air. Beautiful day. Happy day to you. This is Lou Benninger. We're out here at the Patriot, KMYC, on top of Mount Huth. Me and the Wikiman Santos Vigil. We're going to be here for 3 hours today. We are live today, so you can dial us up at 530-742-5555. And you can, sometimes we take calls, sometimes we do not, but sometimes folks just call to give us extra information, pass it along to me, don't want to go on the air. That's fine as well. We're always, we don't know everything out here, but we're close. So, this is KMYCradio.com if you want to go on the internet. If you're out there in one of those counties that our signal fades, we got a guy named Mike out here that he's working on trying to tune this whole station up. So every time I see him, he's looking at his cell phone, reading stuff, studying booklets, and climbing up into dark places in this building, trying to get us more power. Get out there more. So anyway, if you're out there on the edge, you can't hear us very well, you can dial up, look up KMYCradio.com and hit on the Listen Live button. Hopefully live stream is working and you can listen loud and clear. Or more and more, I run into people that said, Lou, I'm listening to you on YouTube because I don't have time to fuss around with it during the day on Saturday. So you can go on YouTube and go to a channel called One Eye Blind Media. Just like you would write it in a sentence, One Eye Blind Media, and then click on Listen Live with Lou, and you can pick your show that you want to tag into and listen to whatever time of the day you want and however much you want. It's a little bit different than the live show because we have to eliminate some of the clips because of copyright restrictions that YouTube has, which is fine, but at least you get the gist of what we're talking about. So I hope you're feeling okay. Some people are sick out there. I'm like eating. I'm on an orange rampage. I'm eating one orange after another orange. My goal is to like jack my immune system up so high that any funky little germ that's wringing its hands wanting to get in my body is going to get zapped by my incredible immune system. Well, I was just thinking last night. Well, let me just say this first. I was thinking last night, let me just say this, how the institutions that I used to believe in, no matter what political persuasion you were or I was, the institutions like police, the FBI, the Justice Department, the IRS were honest institutions that we could always rely on, that would hold the country steady in times of nutcases and stupid stuff that would go on. But with the election of Donald Trump, regardless of what you think of Donald Trump, he is exposed. The election itself, the phenomenon itself, has exposed sort of the insidious takeover of the United States of America based upon a constitution that dictated that we would have a very small government. Now we have a government that controls every aspect of our lives. It was termed a swamp during the campaign, that literally bureaucrats who, if they drop dead tomorrow, you wouldn't miss, now are got their hands around our neck and are manipulating our lives and controlling our lives. And what I realized, and I was just pondering the whole thing last night, we have basically a peaceful coup going on. That's C-O-U-P. Usually there are violent coups down there in Venezuela and Chile and around the world. Indonesia, you'll see coups every once in a while, military takeovers. But what we have is a peaceful coup run by what they call the deep state or the swamp, that is determining or trying to determine the future of the nation. And so the media is involved with that deep state, or heads of the FBI, CIA, National Intelligence Agency, and on and on and on. You have these people, and it is people of both parties. It isn't party particular. And so when I used to listen to the news and think, oh, that's interesting, now most of the time I think, oh, that's a lie. That's just a total lie right there, what they said. But you wouldn't know it unless you're kind of paying attention to the rest of the story. So pretty much the reason the Founding Fathers didn't like a big government is they thought it was corrupt, power hungry, and incompetent. I get a kick out of people around the United States that go to their DMV, and they always post stuff on Facebook, and it's always disparaging comments on the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, no matter which state you're going to. But last night I got a call late and notifying me that there was an emergency happening in Yuba County, and there's a number of railroads that run through. Well, actually, railroads run through a lot of counties because we were dependent on railroad freight supplying our needs, whether they're moving grain or oil or fertilizer or cars or lumber, sheetrock, whatever. And so they move product around the United States. And so the railroad, what we call the railroad bridge, running between South Yuba County and across the Yuba River into North Yuba County, they put out a Office of Emergency Services bulletin, but it was inaccurate. As I read it just a little bit ago, they said that they didn't remember the Office of Emergency Services, that this stretch of railroad bridge going over the Yuba River from what we call Linda into Marysville, or going the other way, was actually worked upon this last year in 2017. And they worked on it for, I don't know, it seemed like weeks. They were driving new pile driving. And, to me, you looked at the railroad bridge, it looked fine, but they were driving more piles, steel, concrete, etc., down into the earth to strengthen that. And I thought, oh, good, they're doing maintenance. Railroads are always doing maintenance. And so last night I got a call. Actually, before I got a call, I saw a photo on Facebook that the entire railroad bridge looked like maybe 30, 40, 50 feet of it is slumping. In other words, there's a dip. It's like, how you drive down a road and then there's a dip in the road because something gives way under the road, like maybe there's a big pipe under the road and it gives way, and so there's a dip in the road. So there's a dip in the railroad bridge, and so much so that a train could not go over it. The interesting part of it, they're out there. If you want to drive over the East Street Bridge going out to Linden Olivers, you can look to the left and see it over there. And there's a big old crew working on it to fix it, which is great. But the interesting aspect of why I segued my initial comments into this is to reveal the ongoing incompetence of government. The county leaders of Yuba County, including sheriff, fire chiefs, supervisors, Office of Emergency Services, and water agency people that handle Bullards Bar Dam, met last night to make whatever decisions they need to make this happen and to stay abreast of what was going on, because there's a diesel fuel line that runs along the bridge that needed to be drained, and there's a communications lines that run along the bridge that needed to be secured. So, but the interesting thing is, you think, well, how did this all, when it happened, who called whom, and how did we all get notified? Well, what happened is probably one of the engineers noticed it and called into the Union Pacific and notified them. And then just like in an industrial accident, they need to let the state know. So they called the Office of Emergency Services to the state. Now, you would think this is why, as individuals, you need to pay attention, and that the person that's going to take the best care of you would be sitting right in your skin right there. And don't count on the city, the county, or the state of taking care of you or covering for you or making sure you know what's going on. That would be your responsibility and my responsibility to pay attention and know what's going on. So just like the Department of Water Resources screwed over Oroville Dam and caused a major spillway collapse, the California Office of Emergency Services, you would think the next call they would have made would be to the Yuba County Office of Emergency Services to let them know and brief them on everything they knew, but they did not. So the county of Yuba ended up finding out through probably residents that same way I found out. Somebody took a photo of that and said, "Man, that ain't right," and posted it on Facebook. And people started talking about it. Probably people called the sheriff's department and said, "Hey, wait a minute. I think the railroad bridge should be straight and smooth as opposed to have a big drop in it like a roller coaster dip." So anyway, that's what's going on over here in Yuba County. But it just, it's. I think if you live in this country, in America, you're a citizen of America. You deep down, if you're a good person, you want things to run right. It doesn't matter which party is in power. You just want things to run right. You want the police to stay on top of things. You want the military to be efficient and effective. You want the sewage plant to work. You want the water to flow right. You want people to make honest decisions as a judge, right? Whether they're Democrat or Republican or independent. You want them to be honest. You want them to be moral. Unfortunately, the problem is today that we no longer hold in high esteem morality or teaching morality. And so you think, in the 60s, they thought, well, we don't need to get married. We can just live together. It really doesn't, if the one you love is not near you, just love the one you're with. And so it didn't matter honesty, morality, integrity, loyalty, hard work. We'll just do whatever we want. And everything will just continue on hunky-dory. Well, the fact is, after these many years, 50 years or so, it isn't continuing on hunky-dory. And even though people, even teenagers, carried weapons in their vehicles back when I was going to high school, because we'd go duck hunting in the morning and then go to school afterwards and carry our guns into the parking lot. They'd be in our car, and there was no big deal. But today, people are so hyper vigilant and afraid that because there's really no moral basis anymore, and we have leaders that lie, judges that are not impartial, district attorneys that are liars. I'm not saying all are. I'm just saying all you do is you just have to have enough of them to have the system break down. So it's a predicament. So I was noticing recently, somebody made a statement I was reading this morning somewhere that it's sad when you cannot count on the media to report on anything positive that's going on in the country, because they can't do that because they've got to show everything negative because they hate Trump. So if the unemployment is the lowest it's been in history for blacks and Hispanics, then what they got to do is ignore that. And then if it goes up month to month, if it goes up 0.5% or 1%, then they got to make a big deal about that it went up, even though it's never been so low. And under Barack Obama, who happened to be a half white guy, they never wanted to talk about that with him. Now, it's interesting, if Trump got the insane loss of life stopped in Chicago of blacks killing blacks, if he got that stopped, they wouldn't report on that. But what they would report on, if they got it cut in half, if it went up 10%, they would report on it going up 10%. In other words, whatever positive there is, you can count on the media to not report it or to find some other negative to hook up with it. So what we have is a propaganda campaign in the country where us that are older, senior citizen types, if you are continuing to look at the media as if you were back in the 1960s, 70s, towards the 80s, you're just totally confused and totally deceived. So the recent, the design of people that were in charge of the FBI and the CIA and the National Intelligence was to do whatever they could to overthrow Donald Trump without shooting him in the side of the head. That was their intended purpose. I'm not guessing on this. You shouldn't have to. It's actually in emails that are now being talked about in congressional committees investigating this. Emails that declared their intent to undermine and overthrow the presidency of Trump. And the idea was that they would keep President Trump under investigation for the entire time that he survived until they could impeach him. And I think probably he'll get impeached as soon as this next elections happen because of what he just did in passing this bill. I think a lot of Republicans are going to get voted out of office. And as soon as there's enough Democrats in the Congress to get a majority vote for impeachment, they will impeach him. But the goal has been all along for the swamp, that would be the Paul Ryans and Mitch McConnell's of the Republican Party and other Republicans and the Democrats plus the media, they want him out of office. They want him out of office. And so the goal was to just launch one investigation after another investigation after another investigation after another investigation of anybody they can investigate, regardless of any, it has nothing to do with any factual basis. It's just creating a dust storm of controversy. So in the last few weeks, we've really got introduced to a porn star, this Stormy Daniels, right? I feel sorry for the lady. I mean, obviously she's made some money in that industry, but there's been this incredible focus on Donald Trump's past, of him, like this, he's on his third marriage. And, but most Americans are on their second or third marriage, right? Or a lot of Americans are. Most, maybe, I don't know whether it's most would be 50% plus one, right? Majority, probably on a second marriage. Or they've lived with a bunch of people, right? So what? A president's been with a number of women in the past, right? It doesn't really look good biblically, but like, who's using that as a standard anymore out there? Not too many people, even Christians. They pick and choose. It's kind of a biblical buffet out there. So they're focusing on this big deal about Trump and the porn star, right? But they never talked about Obama screwing guys, right? Banging guys having guys bend over and banging them all the time, or being a crack addict, or being a total mooch, a schemer and a mooch, going both ways sexually. They didn't talk about that, right? Or like, nobody is saying that Trump had sex with them and knocked them down, busted their lip, raped them, grabbed them, right? Assaulted them in a hotel room. Nobody's saying that. Recently there's a movie came out about Ted Kennedy. The Democrat Party completely covered up the murder, basically the, whether you want to call it involuntary manslaughter, what do you want to call it, where Kennedy abandoned his girlfriend when he ran the car off this bridge and she drowned. She didn't die instantly. The autopsy said she drowned because he didn't want to go in after her, right? That's the kind of guy we got. The Democrats, that's their icon, old Ted Kennedy. So we don't want to talk about that. So Obama screwed up the whole country and banged any hole he could find going both ways, he'd go for. And any female that was standing still for a moment, Clinton went after. But the media doesn't want to go after those guys. But what we're gonna hear about Stormy Daniels. Oh, by the way, did I happen to tell you that Stormy Daniels' attorney worked for Rahm Emanuel? Do you remember that guy? Rahm Emanuel was the chief of staff of the White House. And I need to mention that the attorney, Stormy Daniels' attorney, also happened to work for Joe Biden. Did I happen to mention that Joe Biden's one of his sons, Hunter, was kicked out of the Navy for cocaine use? Did you miss that as well? I just caught up with that. That was a couple of years ago. Well, we're going to take a break, and we'll be back talking more about the crazy stuff that's going on here, there, and everywhere. All right, welcome back. This is Lou Benninger, and we were talking about the government that we used to have, or at least we thought we used to have. Maybe it was just a government in our imagination we thought was true blue and honest and working hard for the people, no matter what flavor they were. But this election has just, it just looks kind of funky, right? Kind of like taking the siding off your house and you think something's wrong inside there, and you take the siding off, and ooh, it's bad. Termites in there, mildew, mold. You have to gut it all out. So I don't know. You remember a guy that IRS guy just looked like an angry old bastard. Guy named John Brennan, just a head of the CIA, just a total liar. You don't even have to. You don't even have to do any investigating. You can just see them right there on the air. It's on YouTube. They're just lying. John Brennan, James Clapper, the National Intelligence Service, just like, nope, didn't see, nope, I don't think that happened. Nope. Ex-military guy with the Air Force, Clapper, James Clapper, big old bald head. That guy, I'm hoping that both of those guys get called in and that charges be brought to them. You remember Thomas Koskinen with the IRS? You remember when hundreds of Tea Party groups and conservative groups and even some church groups, all of a sudden their 501c3 applications or 501c4 applications were being held up. And they were being asked all kinds of personal questions about their lives and about all the donors who donated to them, totally illegal questions. And so when Koskinen was head of the IRS, the first guy resigned, then Koskinen came in, and Koskinen was asked about emails, and he said, sorry, those emails, they're lost. You remember that? And then it was, well, they're not only lost, the disks, the hard drives are gone. Then it's this, that, and the other. And the fact is, they eventually found everything, right? He lied. Lois Lerner, she was the head. Remember at the beginning of that controversy, and it affected the local Tea Party folks here in Yuba County. Lois Lerner, I think they claimed it was a couple renegade IRS agents out of Cincinnati or something like that caused all this problem. And it was a lie. It started right in the White House, and Lerner was right in the middle of it. Lois Lerner, you remember her? And then we had Eric Holder. He lied under oath, right, about Fast and Furious. In fact, he's the only attorney general in the history of the country that was found in contempt by the Congress. And then Loretta Lynch, another attorney general, lied under oath. And then Andrew McCabe, a top FBI official, interim FBI head and second in command. Andrew McCabe, who was recently fired, lied under oath. And then James Comey lied under oath. Hillary lied under oath. Bill Clinton lied under oath. And it just on and on and on it goes. And yet there's some people that still say some of these people are just fine, patriotic Americans. I think, why even put these people, why even have them, like a couple of years ago, I had to go, the district attorney of Yuba County asked me to come in and subpoenaed me to come in and testify at a criminal trial. And before I got to do that, they wanted to make sure I was focused. And so they said, we want you to swear on this, that you would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God. And I did that. But these people say those words, but they don't do that. The truth has no bearing on their story anymore. It's the end result. So we got people like Peter Strzok and the gal, not his wife, but the other gal that he's banging, Lisa Page. They're liars. Robert Mueller is a liar. And there's people in the Republicans that say, oh, Robert Mueller, he's just good as gold. Honestly, I'm going to spend maybe a future part of our show talking about how corrupt Mueller is on other cases. But it's just a different world out there, and if you try to interpret the world today through the lens that you looked at it 30, 40 years ago, you're going to really get confused. I'll tell you what brings clarity to my mind is when you read the writings of some of the founders of this country, and then you get what this country should look like and how far off base we are. It's kind of like having a map, and you think, I think we're lost. And then you look down at the map and you think, we are lost. We are lost. We should be way over there, and we're way over here. So a guy named Alexander Tytler, he's a professor a couple hundred years ago in America, said a democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the voters discover that they can vote themselves largesse, that means cash, from the public treasury. From that moment on, the majority always votes for the candidates promising the most benefits from the treasury, like give me some of that money. With the result that a democracy always collapses over loose, fiscal, fiscal policy, always followed then by a dictatorship. When you look at what they just passed last week and the President of the United States signed, that's exactly what we got. Then President Grover Cleveland, who they claim, Grover Cleveland served as president in the second half of the 1800s. And they claimed, history claims that Grover Cleveland vetoed more bills than any other president before him, all the way back to George Washington. So there was some folks wanting to get some money from the federal government for charity, and he vetoed it. And he says, I can find no warrant for such an appropriation in the Constitution, and I do not believe that the power and duty of the general government ought to be extended to the relief of individual suffering. Now, the reason he wasn't a hard-hearted guy, he didn't say no one should help them. He just said, we're not the folks that's supposed to help them, right? It's like if somebody if I see a set of parents going down the road with their kid and he's got a poopy diaper, that would be their problem. That's not my problem to change that diaper. Now, if they both got run over by a car and I was holding the kid, he had a poopy diaper, I know how to pull that off. I got a little experience. So, but what Cleveland was saying is that the job of the federal government is according to the Constitution. Now, my contention today is there's very little that's being done according to the Constitution at any level today, city, county, state, or federal. They've run totally off the tracks, and they keep swearing to defend the Constitution after they get elected, but they don't comply with the Constitution. Nobody up there at the Board of Supervisors in Yuba County and Sutter County are arguing to say that welfare is compliant with the Constitution, because it is not. We hear about free enterprise or a free economy. Let me give you a quote from Milton Friedman, premier economist that died 10 or 15 years ago. He says a major source of objection to a free economy is precisely that it gives people what they want instead of what a particular group thinks they ought to want. I want you to think about that. A free economy gives people what they want instead of what a particular group could be a special interest group, or it could be a political party. So do you remember when under George Bush, supposedly a conservative, he signed legislation to remove all your light bulbs? Do you remember that? This is just a sample of the abuse that goes on. Instead of letting a free economy, in other words, business corporations coming up with a new light bulb that, even though it might be a little more expensive, lasts way, way longer and has maybe better light, they forced everybody to buy a stupid light bulb that costs a lot more and supposedly will last a lot longer. We'll see, because we aren't there yet. But it sends off horrible light. I don't know what they're doing now, but it isn't as good. So the government gave people what they ought to want. It's the same way where the government says, we want you to drive an electric car, so we're going to make gas so expensive and driving a fossil fuel generated car so expensive to operate and so difficult and so taxed, we're going to force you to do this, that, and the other thing. This government is doing that at every level right now. Friedman goes on to say that an underlying most arguments against the free market is a lack of belief in freedom itself. The reason you can go to your favorite grocery store and there's like 10,000 items hanging off those shelves is that's the free market. If the government took over one product like bread, there would immediately be a shortage, and they wouldn't be able to serve all the varieties that you get. Alexis de Tocqueville, a French guy who came over here and was so fascinated with the American government, and he wrote about it. But he didn't write just nice things about it. He really got a perspective on it, and he wrote some very insightful things back in the 1800s. He said, the American Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers that it can bribe the public with the public's money. I'll say that again. The Republic will endure until the day Congress discovers it can bribe the public with the public's money. That whole budget is bribing the public with the public's money. The whole welfare scheme, where 48, 49 million people are getting food stamps and pay no taxes. We played a clip last week of Walter Williams talking about the fact when you have about half the people in the country pay no income tax but get benefits from the government, financial benefits, you're screwed, because they're always you're going to say, I'm not going to vote for him. He's going to reduce my benefits. And they don't have any skin in the game. It's crazy. You know, I wrote an article in the Territorial Dispatch about a lady, a history teacher in a Rockland High School, that questioned. She didn't say they shouldn't go out and protest and raise a stink about shootings. Here's what she questioned. What it does, it's just like Trump getting elected. It pulled the sheets off the government. It pulled the cover off the government. So this woman asked the question, should high schools begin to let kids out of school to go protest whatever they want? That's all she asked. It's a matter of free speech. So say this week we go out and we protest somebody going in shooting people in a school in Florida. Can next week we go out, which only killed, I think, 17? But should we be concerned about abortion, God forbid, that's killing 3,000 to 4,000 children a day. Well, that was it. It sent them over the edge, and so they put her out on administrative leave, right? So what we have here, when you think of, oh, I'm going to send my kids to a school, that's a really good school. Oh, really? Is it a really good school? What are they teaching your kids? Are you in those classrooms? No, you're not. You're too busy. They're teaching, this is a leftist move. That whole student thing was taking millions of students that are totally ignorant of the cause, the issue, and using them to basically get gun control in the United States and take away people's weapons, which is fascism. Let me read you this about Karl Marx. Most of you probably don't know much about Karl Marx. He was the philosopher that we end up with communism from. Karl Marx, Marx and Engels. The whole gospel or good news or information of Karl Marx, it says, can be summed up in a single sentence. Hate the man who is better off than you are. Now, last night I watched some highlights of the Golden State Warriors. I like basketball, and I'm fascinated with the fascinated with the amazing athletic ability of basketball players. And I don't at all feel sad because most of them are black, because the Bible says that really we're all one race, not that we don't have races, and I believe that. And it also says, don't envy other people. Don't get caught. Don't compare yourselves to other people. So when I see I'm a white person, but there's hardly any whites represented in the NBA anymore, I don't feel bad. But this is Karl Marx. This is the foundation of socialism, communism. Hate the man who's better off than you are. Now, all those guys playing last night, I was enjoying watching them, and I was happy for them. I wasn't saying they got more money than me. I'm feeling bad sitting here watching my computer. I thought, man, that guy is really good shooting that ball, slamming it, doing passing. I thought, oh, that guy's really athletic. And I didn't feel bad because he was a different flavor than me. He looked different on the outside. I thought, oh, I like that guy. That guy plays good. So hate the man who's better off than you are. When I saw I just saw on Facebook, black people climbing up on cars in Sacramento, stomping on the hoods of cars and just people trying to go to the grocery store, and they jumped up on their hoods because some black kid got shot. Well, it's like, well, would you do that I never seen anybody do that if a white kid got shot. So this goes on. It says, never under any circumstances admit that his success may be due to his own efforts, due to the productive contribution he has made to the whole community. Now, I know that all those NBA players not only are bigger than me, bigger than I am, more talented athletically than I am, but I think they put in a lot more work than I did when I played basketball here locally. I think they worked a lot harder than me. Plus, they had better DNA than me in that area. Also, it says, attribute his success to the exploitation, cheating, the more or less open robbery of others. So I didn't feel like last night that Steph Curry exploited me or cheated or robbed me of anything. I enjoyed the game. I watched 10 minutes of highlights, and I felt kind of euphoric at the end. But this guy who wrote this, Henry Hazlitt, said, this is Karl Marx's philosophy. Always attribute the other guy's success to exploitation, cheating, more or less open robbery of others. Like, if those guys are successful, then they rip me off. I need a league for guys under 6 feet. Never under any circumstances admit that your own failure may be owing to your own weaknesses, or that the failure of anyone else may be due to his own defects, his laziness, his incompetence, improvidence, or stupidity. I had a guy drive by my house. A lot of people drive by my house that are on little bicycles when they should be driving a car. They're 35 and they got a little tiny bicycle and they have little driving gloves with the fingers missing on them. And they drive by like they're really expert at that little bicycle. I thought, well, you should have moved on past the bicycle when you were about 15 and stepped up into a vehicle, but they ride it like they're Olympic champions, jumping it up and down. And so he stopped and he says, "Hey, Lou, how's it going?" And he said, "I could use some work." I said, "Oh, okay. I got some work for you." But next question wasn't "Thank you, Jesus," or "Thank you, Lou." It was, "Well, what kind of work?" I thought, you're out on the streets, you got no money, and the next thing, when he didn't take it, he asked me for $5. So I figured, well, he didn't have any money, but he wasn't going to take any kind of work. It's just like the guys, when they went to Biafra, when they had the drought over there, and they had all the starvation. You saw those little kids with ribs sticking through. No kid said, when you said, "Would you like some food?" They said, "Well, what kind of food do you have?" Right? I don't just eat anything. Right? Jeez. So today, I'm going to read you a poem. It says, "Taxes land, taxes bed, taxes table at which he's fed, taxes tractor, taxes mule, tax him, teach him taxes are the rule. Taxes work, taxes pay, he works for peanuts anyway. Taxes cow, taxes goat, taxes pants, taxes coat, tax his ties, tax his shirt, tax his work, tax his dirt, tax his tobacco, tax his drink, tax him if he tries to think, tax his cigars, tax his beers, if he cries, tax his tears, tax his car, tax his gas, find other ways to tax his ass. Tax all he has, then let him know that you won't be done till he has no dough. When he screams and hollers, then tax him some more. Tax him till he's good and sore. Tax his coffin, tax his grave, tax the sod in which he's laid. Put these words upon his tomb, taxes drove me to my doom. When he's gone, do not relax. It's time to apply the inheritance tax. Let me just read you some of the taxes. It's unbelievable. I've got lists where it's nearly 100. Let me just give you an example. Accounts receivable tax, building permit tax, driver's license tax, cigarette tax, corporate income tax, dog license tax, excise tax, federal income tax, federal unemployment tax, fishing license tax, food license tax, fuel permit tax, gasoline tax, gross receipts tax, hunting license, inheritance, inventory, IRS interest charges and IRS penalties, tax on top of a tax, liquor tax, luxury tax, marriage license tax, Medicare, personal property, property tax, real estate, service charge, Social Security tax, road usage, that's like a toll tax, recreational vehicle tax, sales tax, school tax, state income tax, state unemployment tax, telephone federal excise, telephone federal universal, telephone federal state and local surcharge, telephone minimum usage, telephone recurring and non-recurring, telephone state and local tax, telephone usage tax. You like to use those phones? We're getting taxed a lot on those. Utility taxes, registration for your vehicle, vehicle sales tax, watercraft registration, well permit tax, workers' compensation tax. None of these existed 100 years ago, folks. I want you to just hold that thought, and when you drive down those roads and it's just pothole after pothole after pothole and things are falling apart and you wonder where all this money's going. Well, we got 1 minute? Okay. So we're finishing the first hour here. We got 2 more hours to go. And we'll try to wiki man, and we're going to put our brains together and see if there's anything left to talk about today right after this. All right. Well, tomorrow there's a great opportunity, and that is to attend a seminar called The Sheriff and the Citizen. And it's constitutional training, or I would just say constitutional education, on what the importance or the significance or the power of the sheriff is. So this is an amazing talk. It's a one-day seminar, and it's being put on by the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots. Tammy Reichard is coordinating it, and it's happening out at the Church of Glad Tidings at Eager Road and Highway 99 in Building 500, Room 212. So when you drive in out there at 1179 Eager Road, it's all the way to the back. It's a two-story building with a green lid on it. And Sheriff Mack is going to be there. And Sheriff Mack served in the late 80s, I think early 90s, down in Arizona, and got into it with the federal government, Richard Mack, because the federal government was coming up with all kinds of gun regulations, and he basically took them to the Supreme Court and won. And now, I understand he said he wouldn't even bother. He would just ignore what they wanted to do. See, a lot of people think because the federal government does something, you just have to follow it, all, just hook, line, and sinker. Not if it violates the Constitution, you don't. And you don't need to fuss around with going to court. So, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning out there, I know it's Sunday and I know it's tough, but, you know, we're going to fuss around and make up excuses about all these things and end up losing our country. 9 to 4 tomorrow, there's a $20 registration fee, which includes student handbook and lunch. You may just be able to do a walk-on if you're deciding at the last minute. Here's what it's about. The course is recognizing, it's educating you on the sheriff's oath of office and its proper application. The oath of office is to uphold the Constitution, and that means stand against the federal, state, or local officials that enact laws that are contrary to the Constitution. We do not have to follow laws that are contrary to the Constitution. It's the same way Christians do not have to follow laws that are contrary to the Bible. Did you know that? Most Christians just ignore a lot of that stuff. They don't live much different than the average duck, but they go to church. You know that. But a true Christian follows the word of the Bible, the book, right? The Bible. And they obey the law of God over the law of man. So the Sheriff and the Citizen Seminar will discuss the American view of law and government that will identify the founders' formula for preventing tyranny. Tyranny is when the government is running roughshod over you like they are today, like when they do a sanctuary city law or sanctuary state law, and tell sheriffs they cannot cooperate with federal immigration laws. By the way, the Constitution says the federal government's role is, it's got a small role. It's to fight bad guys from the outside and fight bad guys from the inside and keep the borders of the country secure. You get that? So when the states say, well, we're not going to go along with that, then that's a problem right there because that's in the Constitution. So you're also going to learn the doctrines of nullification and interposition and the relationship to the office of the sheriff. Now, we got in both Yuba and Sutter County, along with Nevada County, which this station reaches out to, we're going to get a new sheriff in all three counties. They're going to discuss what the authority of the elected sheriff really is, and it's pretty amazing and powerful. If you've never thought much, you think, oh, well, they just arrest people. No. It's way, way bigger than that. The last thing is to appreciate the importance of elected officials that uphold their oath of office. My contention to you is most of them couldn't find the Constitution or spell the word with both hands. And they certainly don't uphold the Constitution. And most of them that are elected officials in both counties, Yuba and Sutter, that I'm most familiar with, Placer, Butte, Colusa, Nevada. I'm not that familiar with your county, so I'm not going to speak for you. Most officials let their hired bureaucrats run the county and tell them how to vote. That's just how it is, because they don't want to do the homework themselves. They think, oh, vote for me. I want to be your leader. And then they don't want to do the homework to maybe have a different opinion than their bureaucrats that serve them, and end up telling the bureaucrats, it ain't going to be that way because I'm elected to represent the people of this county, right? So tomorrow, 9 o'clock, the Sheriff and the Citizen, go check it out. The other thing is the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots help us survive financially on this show. And so we like that. That helps us. And also, I mentioned, I keep you up to date on what's shaking over there in their land. And they meet at the first and third Mondays of the month at 6:30, and they had a sheriff town hall recently where one of the candidates, Dennis Howell, just got up, got pissed off because they had Sheriff Mack coming in by Skype asking a couple of questions, just got up and walked out of the meeting. And I wasn't there. I watched a little clip of it on the internet, but even if I didn't see a clip on it, I can't imagine a meeting if I was running for office. I mean, I've sat in some controversial meetings, church meetings mainly, as a leader in the church, but I've been on the school board where it got a little gnarly. I never saw myself walking out of a meeting before. Usually it may get a little testy, but never walked out of a meeting. I thought, wow, if you're a sheriff's candidate, you better be willing to hang when it gets gnarly, or maybe you're not the right person for the job. So anyway, the Sutter Buttes Tea Party were kind enough. I mean, there's plenty of good speakers out there, but they were kind enough to give a forum for the sheriff's candidates last Monday night to strut their stuff so people could get to know them. And Brandon Barnes and Jeff Pierce stayed on and talked about what they thought about Sutter County and what they thought was needed. And Wendell Anderson, I believe, was there, or he should have been there, from Yuba County, but he's running for in Yuba County. But this coming April 2nd, the next meeting for the Sutter Buttes Tea Party, Andy Vasquez and David Joyce, they're running for office for the 1st District Supervisor in Yuba County. And I heard Joan Saunders was, but I don't know whether she's going to be at this meeting or not. It just listed these two gentlemen. And they're going to be discussing their candidacy, as well as Randy Fletcher, and that's a 5th district. That's in the foothills of Yuba County. And John Missler, he's running. He used to be a supervisor for that district years ago. John runs the Territorial Dispatch. So Randy Fletcher and John Missler are going to be there. So we have two candidate races, or supervisorial races, that will be discussed. I think it'll be great. Good. I thank the Tea Party for doing that. We need more and more forums like that where people can get to know, and they want to go hear somebody ask questions. That'd be great. So the doors open at 6, starts at 6:30, and go prepared with a question or so. Maybe they'll let you submit a question and get it on out there. The other people that support us is the Elite Universal Security, and with the way law enforcement's going and the way these sanctuary cities are going, or sanctuary state, and the way that judges are saying that you have to let the homeless live wherever they want, you may need some extra security, and Elite Universal Security can do that. I was over at I went over the Dollar Tree. I've been looking at to buy a couple hundred pair of glasses, and I went over. Somebody said the Dollar Tree you can get glasses for $1 a pair, reading glasses. So I thought that's right up my line right there. That just cost me a couple $100. I could load my suitcase up with glasses for people that don't have the ability to see over there. So anyway, I ran into one of the Elite Universal Security guys patrolling the parking lot over there, walking around, making sure people were loving their neighbor. Just make sure people are spreading the love. And they're over there by Starbucks and CVS and Tri-County Bank over there in Marysville. They're patrolling that constantly and making sure people are spreading the love over there, not taking advantage of their neighbor. So the other thing I wanted to say is there's some classes coming up at Elite Universal Security. They got the API Academy, and they got one going on today, unfortunately, that you're missing. And tomorrow it's a CCW class, concealed weapons class. But the next exposed firearm and concealed weapons class is going to be April 14th. That's the classroom session. And then April 15th, you go out to the range and you get to shoot at stuff, blow stuff up. Isn't that cool? So you have to pay, you know, it's kind of like eating your greens, and then you go out and eat the dessert. Boom, light it up. So April 14th and 15th, and you can also renew your license on April 15th. And then, this sounds fun. A taser class. How would you like to just practice on somebody, right? So get a volunteer, tase them. Or pepper spray. I got pepper sprayed at juvenile hall. I volunteer over there, and every once in a while the kids get lathered up. They start, people be unholstering that pepper spray. Pew, the whole room fills that pepper spray. I said, that's no fun, that stuff, pepper spray. And so you can learn how to shoot it. A taser, you could tase somebody and then pepper spray them just as a backup. And so April 7th, you can sign up for that. So you can call 749-0280, and you can have Monty come over, and if you got piles of poop on your front porch, and you said, who's doing that to me every week? Monty will figure it out. He'll track them down. He's got all these skills that I don't have. So Monty Hecker, 749-0280, or you can go to catch some of those classes at API. Now, the way I found out which classes were going on is very simple. You just go on the website. I did it last night. I was kind of getting snoopy. And API-academy.com, API-academy.com, and you just go down there and they have a calendar of classes, or they'll just list the classes that are coming right up. So I said, well, that one's too close because that's going to be right when I'm talking about it. So anyway, check them out. And if you need, man, if you're losing stuff out at your farm or around your business, or people tagging your business, or you're harassing your customers coming in, and that lady, she keeps hitting me up at wanting me to pay her way back to Roseville all the time. I said, what are you doing up here all the time? Want me to give her gas money? First she's at Walmart. She's got a car. She said, I bet that's not even her car. She says, talks about, I need gas money, right? And that's her car right there. I bet that's a customer's car. Said she didn't even own a car. She just working, just said, honey, I got up here and I'm just in a hard way, and I just need a couple bucks to get back to Roseville. Just get back home where my people are, where the love and a warm house is. So anyway, well, I was talking about the fact that when government, the key people in government, the infrastructure of your government that sort of is the fabric that holds our society together, when that gets wobbly, you better have your own gun and taser and pepper spray, because those folks, when this thing gets gnarly and the people that should be getting arrested and going to prison and going to jail aren't, or they get let loose, they go back out on the streets, like somebody the other day just got a year in jail for molesting their relative or something. I thought, man, oh day, that ain't right. And then the guy over in Yuba County got 30 years. I thought, that's more like it. So anyway, we've had a real problem, and this week, you can read all about it in the Appeal Democrat on Thursday and Friday, I believe it was. Let me see. Yeah, Thursday and Friday of this last week, the 22nd, 23rd. You could probably still find a copy or go online. And there's a big article about the trouble in our district attorney's office. And honestly, I'm just wondering when we're ever going to get a district attorney's office that you never hear anything about except them prosecuting cases and doing their job. And not getting sued and not having people freak out and getting fired, and misappropriation of funds and all kinds of stuff. But the article is so amazing because it's regards fired investigator Jason Parker. And it's interesting. I don't know a lot of people personally in the county. I know a lot of people casually, hi, I know you. Good to see you. Have a happy day. But Parker, I've known his family since he was a kid and watched him come up through the ranks at Yuba County Sheriff, Yuba City Police, Net 5, and in the Sutter County DA's office. And he's had a stellar career until he landed over at the DA's office, and then there was problems. And you can read all about it. I'm not going to spend time to read the article for you because you can read it yourself. But it's interesting, this whole DA's office, we had a DA named Carl Adams who was in there for over 30 years. And when I began to write articles about the fact that he was corrupt, oh, man, some conservative people in the community got all pissed off and going after me and like, how dare you say stuff like that? Well, the guy was corrupt and so corrupt that the Sutter County supervisors, he had his hooks into them so bad that they wouldn't even bring an investigator to even audit the books and look at how bad it was. But the state of California went in and looked at two sets of 2 years of the handling of state grants for victim witness, and they found $80,000 that was spent for, in other words, victims got shorted and the money got used elsewhere. So anyway, Carl Adams was lying to people and having sex with escorts, and, it was just a big mess, right? And the other thing that revealed was that amongst key people in our community, like deputy district attorneys and sheriffs and cops, they were all swapping partners, or they were having multiple partners at the same event, right? You ever hear like three's too many, 4, like, hey, just stay in your lane, dude. Find yourself a partner and stay in your lane over there, right? And keep that personal information to yourself. But I guess with the influence of pornography and all the craziness today, people that are making judgments in court and arresting people and putting people in jail for crimes regarding sex were actually coloring outside the lines sexually themselves, yet they in other words, they're immoral, but maybe it wasn't illegal, right? Because now we've erased all the morality and ethics out of our government jobs, and unless it isn't explicitly against the law, then it's okay. Like one sheriff's deputy, and I'm not saying all sheriff's deputy or all attorneys in the district attorney's office are corrupt. I'm not saying that at all. I know a lot of the Sutter County sheriff's guys and gals, and I care about them, and I love them, and I think they're good people. They do a good job, the hard job. But one wife of a sheriff's deputy, now they're divorced, said, Lou, my husband got me to have sex with him and one of the deputy DAs. A threesome, right? I just, when people, and then she said, then they wanted me to have sex with her husband. Something, when people get goofy like that, you wonder at what point their judgment can be trusted, or they have good judgment in cases where, basically the law is based on morality. That's where the law came from. It came out of the book, the Bible, right? That was the original law. And so this gets into the fact that people like Amanda Hopper, who's the district attorney, her husband it doesn't talk about her having sex with other people. It doesn't address that. But her husband was having sex with the police chief's wife of Marysville. And then she comes up dead, and it looks like a suicide, but then it doesn't look like a suicide. It looked like somebody shot her. And yet we have a failure in the justice system of California. By the way, Kamala Harris, who a lot of you liberals voted for, was a horrible attorney and basically slept her way to the top. So at what point do you have confidence in people? She was screwing Willie Brown while he was married and having kids. And so, you have these people that are cheat. You know, if people are going to cheat on their spouse or cheat on their kids, right? Like the Hoppers had 5 kids, right? So you have the husband having sex with somebody other than mom. That ain't right. And so, anyway, this whole case with the incorrect firing of Jason Parker, according to him, he's filing a suit saying, hey, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on here. And then he talks about having to arrest the community development director of Sutter County, Danelle Stylos. I mean, what director is exempt from doing goofy stuff? So they arrest her of repeated fraud and lying because she claims she was living in Sutter County, which her job said she had to live, but she was living in Sacramento. So all her permits, driving license, all her CCW, concealed weapons permits, voting, she was using an ex-fire chief's address in Sutter for her address. So she was lying on federal, state, and maybe even county documents. So they canned her and arrested her. She's still waiting to go to trial. But it just like throughout the Sutter County government, now we got Jim Whitaker, who's a supervisor and PE teacher. He got canned at the Yuba City Unified School District because girls and now ladies that are in their 30s are coming forward. And I get a kick out of where people say, oh, well, they're just doing it for money. Really? After 20 or 30 years, you come back and you're not filing a lawsuit for money? You're just saying, hey, I'm sick of it, man. The guy molested me. And so now we got a situation where Whitaker is in the process of losing his job. He's been off duty for months. And now there's a recall. They're trying to get a recall going on Whitaker. But we'll talk about that when we come back because Wiki says we need to let somebody else have a chance to talk. So we'll be right back. All right, Lou Benninger here. I was talking last half hour about the unseemly state of affairs in local politics in Sutter County, and there's a couple articles written in the Appeal Democrat on Thursday and Friday of this past week, 22nd and 23rd of March. And it's the lawsuit of former chief investigator of the District Attorney's Office of Sutter County, Jason Parker, against the county for unlawful firing. And he discusses the Sarah Easton case, as I mentioned earlier, and the Danelle Stylos case, who's the community development director that was arrested. Then she was subsequently fired by the supervisors. But there's many other tentacles to this case, exposing the inner workings of the department, according to Parker's perspective. And Hopper, the district attorney, like a lot of officials, when they're getting sued, they say can't talk about that because it's a personnel matter, etc. So she didn't get her to tell her side of the story until the court case comes forward. But a couple times she said that's not true. So there was an Allie Yeoman case, Yeoman. She disappeared. Beautiful girl, hardworking girl, college-age girl going to Yuba College. She disappeared, had been at a house drinking one night with some friends, and her body was discovered in the Yuba River. And so she was gone for a number of days, and then they discovered the body. But Jason Parker ended up being heavily involved in that case to help. And I won't get into all the reasons. I don't have time right now to. But anyway, he was reprimanded by the district attorney for meeting with the family on the weekend. The family was obviously severely distraught, horrified, and wanted to meet with victim services and Parker, and he took his weekend to go meet with them. So, you can read all about this. Very sensitive cases. The Yeoman case never has been solved, whether she slipped into the river in the middle of the night, which is very odd. The Sarah Easton case, which is yet have been years now, over 2 years since she was shot, and the Attorney General of the state of California has been negligent in bringing that to conclusion. So, and then we have this ongoing, I'm just thinking about it at the break while I was listening to the commercials, etc. I wonder which one of these candidates that are involved in extra-sexual activity would field any questions about that at one of these town hall meetings. It's just something that's like maybe it's legal, but we'll see how proud everybody is of that kind of behavior when you're asking the citizens to make you a leader of the county, a sheriff of the county, a supervisor of the county, or whatever. So pretty gnarly stuff, folks. And so we get a chance to vote on a number of these folks every couple of years. One of them, Jim Whitaker, as I was mentioning, is not up for re-election. But as I referred to earlier as we went to a break, there's an effort by those down in his district, in the 5th District, to recall him. The way that works is that the folks in the district, 20 of them have to sign a notice of recall and serve the particular person they want to recall. Then they take that document and those names to the county clerk, and then she has to certify that and okay the petition, where they would have to go out and get, in this case, I think a couple thousand signatures just out of that district. But all the process has a certain amount of days involved in it. Now, once you trigger the process to start, there's certain amount of days you have to perform this, certain amount of days you have to perform this, and I don't have time, I don't have 8 hours to talk about this, but the reason they have a certain amount of days is because it takes the politics out of the system. Because if people could just get to it when they got to it, if the county clerk was biased and was a friend of the candidate that they were trying to recall, they could drag their feet and discourage the recall from happening. So in statute, it only gives the county clerk a certain amount of days to certify the petition, to certify the document, to issue the petitions, so they can go out, and then there's a certain amount of days that they got to get the petitions back, and there's just a certain amount of days that they got to affirm the signatures. And so it appears that there's a little dragging of the feet over at the county clerk's office. And so they were supposed to, at least in everybody's mind that was working on this campaign to recall, that they should have been able to get the okay on the paperwork that was submitted. They already made any corrections that she requested. They should have got that Friday, but for some reason they did not. So now there's a suspicion that, just like you would, you think, oh, I wonder if there's collusion, as we've now learned what that means at the federal level, collusion. In other words, is there a bias in our government here in Sutter County? The other thing is, and maybe there's not, maybe they just couldn't get something done by Friday at 5. And, of course, in government, if you don't get it done Friday at 4 or 5, then it doesn't matter whether the whole world comes to an end because of it. You're not going to do it till Monday morning. Or if there's a holiday on Monday, then it'll be Tuesday morning. Take that. Doesn't matter whether it triggers Armageddon. So also this coming week, there's 3 things going on. Jim Whitaker, after working for Yuba City Unified School District for over 20 years, has been dismissed. There's a couple lawsuits by girls. There's probably some people feel up to 20 women that have come forward in various ways saying, "Me too." But there's a couple youngsters from that are teens that are filing an action, legally filing an action against Jim Whitaker. And I'm told that Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, on the courthouse steps, that's, I assume, on the new courthouse on Civic Center Boulevard, there's going to be a press conference So I don't know what the purpose of it is, but they are going to be there at 11 o'clock Wednesday if you're interested in hearing what that's all about. But we'll see next week whether this recall paperwork gets cleared. It's interesting that some people are saying that are supporters of Jim Whittaker, saying it's wrong. I read this, their comments on Facebook said it's wrong to recall him for something that he hasn't been found guilty of. You can file a recall just because the guy grows a mustache, right? Or the guy doesn't wear enough underarm deodorant. You do not have to have a reason to have a recall. You can just say, I changed my mind, right? It's just like you could call it irreconcilable. In California, there's what they call no-fault divorce, just like I don't want you no mo, right? So the whole argument that they should now wait till this whole lawsuit plays out is stupid. It's stupid. And the fact that, I mean, if women from different generations showed up for whatever reason and had an issue over whatever, it pretty much erases the stupidness and bias, and you can't blame everybody that they want money when nobody's really asking for money except these two youngsters that feel like the school system kicked them around, jerked them around, and feels like the police jerked them around, and feels like the teachers jerked them around, supposed mandated reporters, which that's a bunch of baloney. So anyway, that whole thing ought to play out this coming week, one way or the other. The recall ought to play out one way or the other. And the supporters of the recall think they can get enough signatures to put it on the November ballot, but that still doesn't recall him. It's tough to recall somebody, folks. It's very difficult. Now, remember, we recalled Gray Davis, the governor of the state of California, which was amazing. But this recall has to get a certain number, like I think over 2,000 signatures that are good signatures, verified voters in the 5th District, and then 50% of the population of that 5th District plus one person, 50% plus one vote, got to vote to recall Jim Whittaker, or he's not going to get recalled. And he would stay as a sitting supervisor even if he's sued and loses to these women, young women. So it's no small thing to recall somebody. So we'll see whether that's going to be able to happen, but that's not going to happen before November. You're not, even if they get enough signatures, they're not going to get it on the ballot probably till November. Now, we saw in Yuba County where we had a fight with the residents of Yuba County had a fight with their own supervisors over the endorsement of the supervisors over a subdivision, a new subdivision out in South Yuba County called Magnolia Ranch out by Beale Air Force Base and out near the Wheatland area. And the farmers out there and a lot of rural citizens said, we don't want this out here and we don't need it because we've got subdivisions that never did get built out, like Plumas Lake and Edgewater and even others out in Wheatland. We don't need it. If people want to build homes, we already have streets and lots and developments that never got built out. So why are we going to take more farmland out of production? Well, the reason farmers and developers like or investors like to do that is they're going to make money on it. It isn't about these altruistic ideas. They're going to save the world by putting in a subdivision. It's about making money. So nothing wrong with that. It's just whether that's the best thing for everybody. So anyway, the folks that were anti-Magnolia Ranch got petite people to sign to put an item on the ballot to vote on Magnolia Ranch, to reject it. Anyway, the proponents, or the people that wanted Magnolia Ranch, kept filing lawsuits and brought issues into the court on on whether they were valid petitions and whether the petition was explained things correctly or it was done according to law, according to the rules. So how these things are done, it's all open to conflict in court. And I think they went to court twice with Magnolia Ranch, and then finally the folks just withdrew the proposal for Magnolia Ranch instead of letting it get on the a ballot and go forward. So anyway, we'll see what happens there, but it's a big deal. So you can read all about it. Fired chief investigator alleges inappropriate actions by the district attorney, and Rachel Rosenbaum. She wrote both articles. Rachel has just been up to her ears in alligators around here. There's always something to write about in our area. So, okay, well, we still got a few minutes, so I'm just going to move on here. I want to talk about sanctuary state here for a few minutes. So the government of this state of California has lost their minds. So they're the people that gave you Harvey Milk, that forces your kids to bow down to a pedophile and cheer and clap and say nice things about a pedophile who loved to, like Obama, like to bang boys. And so he's going to be celebrated here in, oh, geez, it's only 60 days away. We'll be celebrating Harvey's day, the mayor of Castro Street, as they call him. And his skill was to have sex with boys. So they made a movie about him in Hollywood. And of course, whatever Hollywood says is gospel, of course. So these are the same people that say that transsexuals can, like, determine how they're feeling that day, what bathroom they're going to use. So if they feel like their feminine side's really coming out, they can go to that side. Or if they feel like their male side coming out that day, they can go to that side. And basically all sexual paths are normal. And it's just like somehow, if you believe in God, God got a little goofed up. He got the recipe wrong on that kid, right? And or if they believe in evolution, it's just like, we got a little throwback going here, a little gene throwback. And so anyway, now they came up with this idea that basically behind this sanctuary state thing is the idea that we, the foundation, the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about is the Democrats want to secure the future. It started with Ted Kennedy in a 1969 bill that essentially was the first steps to have open immigration, open borders, where the Democrats would take in poorly educated people of all different countries and fill the Democrat Party and get their allegiance by giving them free everything. And so at one time, people came to this country as immigrants, and there was nothing guaranteed to them except opportunity, great opportunity. There was no money, no food stamps, no free housing, no free education. They had to make their way, and many, many people did, and it made this country great. But there was no guarantees. In fact, many people, and they don't talk a lot about this, many people tried it here. It didn't work out for them, so they went back to Europe, wherever they came from. In fact, it was even offered to freed slaves, Liberia and Sierra Leone were offered as places that slaves would be shipped to. If they wanted, they could get a free ride back there and start their own country. Many abolitionists felt that maybe they wouldn't want to stay in America anymore, or they would find it difficult to make a living here. So they thought maybe they'd like to go home. But after all those years, people had pretty much adopted the American way, even if it was racist and difficult. But they stayed, majority of them. A handful went back. So, but these sanctuary laws are to fortify a Democrat Party to change the United States of America to a welfare state, a socialist state, where people just get a check for breathing. And that's what it's all about. So that the rulers in the primary guys pulling this off are Mexican guys in allegiance with La Raza, which means the race. As I said earlier, if you're going by the Bible, which is the manual for existence on earth, it says the race is the human race. It has nothing to do with your language or how tall you are, whether your hair is straight or kinky, or whether you got a flat nose or sharp nose, or what your color is. There's one race. And so the Mexicans, the La Raza people, think it's the race, and they want to rule California. So a lot of them have made it to the top of California. Some of them are getting thrown out right now because of illegal behavior and molesting people and stealing money and being paid bribes to allow people to get their way. So sanctuary state is that if an illegal, in other words, they don't want to use this term illegal alien, right? In other words, somebody coming into this country that doesn't come through the door, like if somebody knocks at my door and asks to come in and I invite them in, that's illegal. That's a legal entry. If at night I find somebody downstairs and they came through the window, that would be illegal, right? So these people, to start off with, that's a felony, I believe. So to come into the United States and not come in through the normal permissive ways, you're in trouble already. So every week I do classes in Yuba County Jail, and I know a lot of these folks. They're from all over the world, Hong Kong, Cuba, everywhere. It's amazing. And I've gotten to know them. So I ask them questions. And so one guy the other day, I said, what happened to you? Because he's very talented. He's a construction guy. He's got a family here. He's married to an American citizen. He never got his papers straightened out. He came in illegally, married an American, and he works for a living. But he's got a problem, just like a lot of us have problems. And he keeps driving drunk. He's got 4 DUIs, and he's got a hit and run. I want you to think about that. How would you feel if you got hit and then the guy drove off, or your kid got run over? That's what this guy did. He's a very nice guy. I like him. But he has a problem in his life, and he's going to kill somebody. So he told his wife, he said, I don't care if they deport me. I'll just cross back the border. It's not a problem. I got this down, right? So that's the problem we have. And so this that's a bad sign right there. I just heard that. It's music. We'll be right back. We got an hour to go. I'll finish this thing when we get back. Not so long. All right. So I'm getting emails and calls, people informing me and straightening me out. I appreciate people's sense of accuracy here. So I mentioned earlier that the 2 supervisors from Yuba County are from the 5th District, but I also mentioned in Yuba County, but I also mentioned Jim Whitaker was 5th District, Sutter County, but I've been dutifully corrected. It's the 4th District. So any of you, like I had one of the major people involved in this trouble with Whitaker. He didn't know which district he lived in. He thought he lived in Whitaker's district. So anyway, it's 4th District. So all you out in the 4th District, you can choose whether you're going to have a new supervisor or not one of these days if the county clerk actually does her job, okay? So I also wanted, since, Andy Vasquez, the supervisor for the Linda District, 1st District in Yuba County, and that is the area, I believe, where the trestle is slumping, the train trestle. Andy called, and he's been checking on it, and he said those boys are going to have that fixed by Monday. Maybe there's a girl out there, too, so maybe it's like, is it a co-ed effort out there? Wikiman said he thinks it's probably a co-ed effort. So the boys and girls of the railroad are going to have that railroad. That's amazing, because if you drive over there and you look at that, it is shocking to look at. It's just like, say what? That thing just sunk right down into the ground. And I said, I wouldn't want to be on no train going to take that little dip. I think we'd all be wanting to dip in that river. So they're going to have that fixed by Monday, and they've they cut off the spillway from Bullards, and they dropped that water down 4 feet. So just the control people have over us. Well, I just want to jump back since we got all these people wanting me to like make some amendments to my talk. I was talking about sanctuary cities, but I wanted to go back and talk about this money to keep the government going. You know, we're going to run out of money and we're going to have to lay people off. Did you know have you ever noticed anybody when people got laid off because of the government shutdown, did your life change? There was still like liquor on the shelves, cigarettes to buy, lights stayed on, the toilet flushed, right? There was gasoline. Life went on, right? So here's, one of my friends said to me, Lou, did they have any money in there researching whether bees can have good sex on cocaine or something like that? Because, on the Waste Book every year, it used to be Tom Coburn, the senator from Oklahoma, used to have the Waste Book talking about the stupid stuff that they take our money, our hard-earned money, your hard-earned money, and spend the money on. And now Jeff Flake is kind of taking that over since Tom retired. And so I didn't go through the whole bill. By the way, from the time the bill actually was available to read, before they voted on it, they only had, I think, let me just see here. They had 1,000 minutes to read 2,232 pages. They had to read 2.23 pages per minute to see what they were voting on a $1.3 trillion bill to keep the government solvent, right? So here's a couple things that stayed there. They gave $500 million to Planned Parenthood. Now, you remember the Republicans, including Donald, said they were going to defund. The Republicans said, if we ever take over the Congress and the White House, we're going to defund Planned Parenthood. Well, they didn't. The other thing they gave money to was public broadcasting, National Endowment for the Arts, and National Endowment for the Humanities, all of which they said, if we ever take, we're going to vote against that. We're going to not give them any more money. I always wonder why we have to pay, like Wikiman, and we got to pay to be here, yet public broadcasting, my tax dollars are taken from me. I'm paying for that public broadcasting who constantly is trashing the President of the United States and constantly trashing a lot of things that I don't believe in, right? Or they're supporting a lot of things that I don't believe in. My feeling is, hey, if I'm not trying to shut people up. If people want to have their say and they don't like some gal went after me on Facebook, got all gnarly with me last week, something I wrote in the Territorial about education or something. She just said, go bite me. I think that means she didn't like the story. Think so? Wiki says he thinks that. He knows. He's a Wiki man. So anyway, people, I think that's great when people respond like that. I just don't think I should have to pay for it. Why should I have to pay her rent if she wants, right? I don't care whether she says it, but why should I have to pay her rent? So they gave money to Planned Parenthood. They gave money to the Endowment for the Arts, Public Broadcasting, Endowment for the Humanities. Why would I have to pay for somebody else's art? If I want to buy art, I'll do it. If I want to support the local art center, I will do it, or the local museum. But why should you take my tax dollars and give it to somebody, right? No matter what they do with it, whether they put a crucifix in urine or whatever, all that kind of weird stuff. There's some twisted folks out there. One gal covered herself in chocolate, right? Do you remember that gal, and had sex on stage with somebody? And we actually funded that. I guess it's all right to do that, I guess, if you're of that state of mind. I don't know. There's really no moral compass anymore, so if you want to get covered in chocolate and have sex with a goat, it's okay nowadays, right? So they also gave $2.05 million to prevent elderly folks from falling. I don't know why we have to pay for that. Why wouldn't the elderly solve their own falling problems? How about $8 million for breastfeeding grants? Why can't people sort out all the activities of their breasts on their own? How come we gotta fund breastfeeding? It's just like former generations and tribal groups, they all sorted out that breastfeeding on their own. How come we got to like fund it with $8 million? We got $4 million to combat excessive alcohol use. How about Nancy Reagan's Just Say No? You remember how they made fun of that? Just say no, you stupid. Oh, you're such a minimalist. You're just so simplistic. Da 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 da. Well, I mean, at the end of the drug rehabs, it's just, yeah, stop it, right? So excessive, we're going to, how many generations are we going to examine excessive alcohol use? Now we're going to wonder, I'll tell you why old people fall, because they lose their balance. How about that? And so what are we going to buy them all a health membership at the club? Another $15 million goes to study fat people. I think we ought to just shoot fat people. Now, if we shot fat people, it would cut down the cost, first of all, of feeding them, and then the high. Now, you know, a lot of people, you know, say, well, fat people are costing us too much money because they're sucking up all the health care dollars. Well, not really, because they die sooner. So when fat people die earlier, then, you know, say if they die at 55 as opposed to 75, you save all that 20 years of them blowing off methane gas, extra methane gas, eating too many loaves of bread, and going to the doctor too much. So it kind of evens out. They die, you know, they consume their food quicker in bigger piles, and then they die earlier. So, but we're spending 15 to study high obesity counties. So I'm thinking maybe out of 3,144 counties, if any of you, if I'm off one or two counties, call me up. Let me know. I don't want to miss it. 3,144 counties. Maybe Yuba County. I know we got Nicole Quick, the doctor over here in Yuba County, says we got a lot of fat people in Yuba County. Now, I think we got fat people everywhere in the United States. Whenever I fly back in here, the whole population looked like it stayed on the inflation meter too long. They're overinflated. By the way, you guys out there in Hagerman, Idaho, I want to give a shout out to you. Don't be having too good a time over there with spending just a little bit of money. And I bet you got a holster on with a gun in it right there, too, just sitting there listening to the radio show. Also, there's $5 million for the CDC, California Disease Center, or California, Centers for Disease Control. They want to address obesity as well. So we're gonna study it, and we're gonna address it, like, don't eat so many biscuits. Don't eat so much butter. Don't put so much stuff in your mouth, right? So I remember I think I said last week, I was talking about John Nicoletti and Mary Jane Griego going to address obesity, and Mary Jane wanted to put a moratorium on fast food restaurants. Damn those restaurants, because it just happened she was involved in the restaurant business, right? So it's like, stop those fast food restaurants. And but I ran into John at a funeral the other day. He didn't look too happy. Maybe he listened to the radio show, but he was still pretty big. I thought maybe they ought to study John. That, you know, we thought he was conservative, but now he's working for old Garamendi over there, the white Obama. So now we know what he's doing. He's just a big dude. And but here we got money that could study him and Mary Jane and see if we can solve their problem. Get them on, like, at, you know, we got all, there's Weight Watchers, and then there's Jenny Craig, and then there's the Pritikin diet, the Atkins diet. There's all these diets. What's that one where they just eat meat all the time? That's that caveman diet or whatever they call it. Anyway, there's lots of diets out there. Actually, what Dr. Cassidy told me once was just so profound. He said, Lou, whatever the problem is, if you want to lose some weight, you got to burn up more calories than you take in. I thought, oh, that's a profound statement, right? Confucius said that. He who wants to lose weight, take in less calories than you put out. So anyway, oh, by the way, and finally, the legislation, this bill, omnibus bill, which I call it the ominous bill because it's so freaky, it mandates that the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, that's just a sickening sounding bureau, the Tax and Trade Bureau, they want to spend money to improve wine label accuracy. Do you know there's people, would you be disappointed if you spent 20-some years of your life raising a son or daughter and you hoped great things for them, they would accomplish great things, and they ended up working for the government, and their job was to approve wine labels? Do you think that would be a waste of a good human life? I think it would. It's like a guy that studies spotted mice. It's just like, I think there's more to life than just studying spotted mice. Well, sanctuary, we're talking about sanctuary states, and I've been wondering, I haven't heard a peep from the local boards of supervisors or the city councils who might say, well, let's see, we have law enforcement under our jurisdiction, under our purview. We have to approve law enforcement budgets. So what say our law enforcement people about, do we want to follow these sanctuary state rules that violate the Constitution, right? And so lo and behold, as it says somewhere, maybe it says in the Bible or in some fairy tale, lo and behold, Los Alamitos, a small city of just 12,000, just like Marysville, 12,000, in Orange County, has said, we don't want to do that. No mo for us. 4-1, they said, we are not going to abide by that stupid law. We are going to follow the Constitution. And now the Orange County Register has said that maybe Orange County itself is now thinking of saying the same thing. We're not going to do that. We're going to follow the Constitution. And then there's some cities down there like leaders in Aliso Viejo and Buena Park. Those are both Orange County cities. In fact, those cities are served by Trauma Intervention Program. And they are also looking at saying, we're not going to follow that either. So Orange County is an interesting county. It's kind of, this election is going to be fun coming up because both June and November, because Orange County used to be kind of a conservative stronghold in California. However, that county voted for Hillary Clinton in the last election, and they voted in a Democrat, Josh Newman, as a representative representing Fullerton, and at the state level, and he beat out a conservative. And so he went right in, and he was the key vote in raising the gas tax. So Josh Newman, the people down in that district, his district, the Fullerton, or that area down there, which includes more than Orange County, I believe, Josh's district got enough signatures to put a recall on the ballot. So he is up for recall, and also a repeal of the gas tax could also get on the ballot, which might bring a lot of Republicans out to vote. So we may end up getting a flip-flop down there in Orange County, and we may get a little head of steam in some of those Orange County cities. Now, some of the people down there, in fact, I don't know whether I can find this, but one of the professors at a local hospital, at a local college, said, well, he says the problem is in these pushback on the sanctuary states, there's just too many white people. It's all about white people. They don't like brown people, or they don't like black people. Well, I thought, you know something? The interesting thing is a lot of my Hispanic and black friends, they don't like people breaking into this country any more than I do. And in fact, I think blacks have a real big problem with it as a demographic group. They're not happy about it at all. And I know a lot of Mexican folks that were either born here or came here, and I think a lot of East Indian people in this Yuba Sutter area, particularly Sutter County, where a lot of them live, that had to come here. I'm not saying they all came here legally, but eventually they got straightened out with their papers. But they're not happy about it either. And so this professor, I can't find his name, but he's a racist as far as I'm concerned. And he said he had all percentages of how many white folks versus how many other colored folks there were. And, oh, here he is, DeCipio, Professor DeCipio. And he's the professor of political science at UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine. He's not surprised by the stance in Los Alamitos because of its demographics. He said the city is more white and slightly more affluent than Orange County as a whole. In other words, we just got to get Orange County more broke and more brown. And then everybody will vote right. So he says Los Alamitos is 71% white, whereas Orange County as a whole is 61% white. I guess he doesn't know that there's actually white liberals out there. But just hold that thought. So anyway, we have, I keep getting different numbers, but in California, I think there's either 10 to 13 ICE detention centers. That's Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Used to be INS, the Immigration Naturalization Service. But now it's ICE, and so we have one of the 10 to 13 detention centers in Yuba County. So what a detention center means is once the person in question has done their time for their criminal act, then if they're not a citizen of the U.S., then they get placed in one of these holding centers where they're cared for. If they just want to go back home, they'll deport them. But the reason they're in the detention center is they're fighting their case and they're trying to stay here in America. So some in the Yuba County Jail have been there 2 years. They're not sentenced there. In fact, all they would have to do, in fact, one Chinese gal told me, she was one of these massage ladies I got to know in jail. She attended the classes. And she said, Lou, I just want to go home. I don't want to fight this anymore. I had a bad relationship with a guy. I just want my money and my assets, and I just want to go back to near Shanghai, right? Guangdong province, Shenzhen or Shanghai. And she said, I just want to go back. And so they deported her. They put her on a plane and flew her back. And so if all these people said, I want to go home, they would go home. They would send them right home. But they do have a right to fight their case. So what's happened is they wait and wait and wait to get an immigration deal. So Yuba County, I don't know how they're going to handle it in Yuba County. I don't know whether the supervisor talked about it. But there's a possibility this sanctuary state things get gnarly enough. The state will tell the counties, you can't have an immigration detention area. You got to vacate. And that would be the time where the county flips them the bird, or the city to flip them the bird and just say, you know something, you guys, we're not going to be part of a secession, and we're not going to be a part of a kind of a faux, F-A-U-X secession where you just pick and choose the buffet items in the Constitution you're going to obey and not obey. So it'll be interesting if Orange County takes a stand on this. And there's 58 counties in California. It would be fun if all the Jefferson counties, the 21 counties up north here, would take a stand. Now, not all the Jefferson County supervisors, the supervisors in these counties are conservative, right? So we'll see. So what we got going on now? Let me see if I can find this. This blew my mind. They just had a round table. I watched. Normally, I got a little ADHD. I can't hardly read anymore for much more than a few minutes or watch stuff on the internet. I don't think I could even watch a 1 hour show anymore if I had a TV. I just got to get up I don't know. I'm getting anxious or something. Maybe I need to go on some of those psych meds. But I watched that. Did you watch that immigration? Oh, are we out of time again? Dang, that happens every couple of minutes. All right, we'll be right back. We'll carry on this immigration thing in a second. Noon to 3, I think, on Sundays, they're going to do a show. And I think Tammy Reichard, who you've been hearing doing this commercial, she spoke here. We interviewed her last week, and she was talking about the Constitution. She actually teaches a class on the Constitution. I think she's doing it yearly now, or maybe twice yearly. She's very smart. I like her. In fact, we were saying she should do my. In fact, we tried to have Chris Ann Hall, who you heard on a couple clips here. She's a national speaker on the Constitution, an attorney. She used to work for the state of Florida until she got into it over her insistence on following the Constitution. But anyway, we were going to have Chris Ann Hall substitute while I was in Vietnam, and but she had a sudden death in the family and goofed her up. But we've been trying to, we've been courting her. We've been flirting with Chris Ann Hall, trying to get her to spend some more time over on this show because she's so great. And Tammy's like her. I thought, oh, Tammy Reichert, when she was on the show here last Saturday, I thought, I like her. She's smart. So I was listening to this roundtable. You didn't listen, did you? It's about 20 minutes, roundtable about immigration. All these immigration, border patrol, cops, investigators, amazing group of people. And they all spoke maybe a few minutes each. Anyway, this one lady whose son, I believe it was her son, who was a law enforcement official, was murdered by an illegal alien who had failed to be deported and remained in the country and then murdered her. I believe it was her son. Mendoza was her last name. Marianne Mendoza. And she tried to lobby with the Obama administration, didn't get anywhere. Her son was Sergeant Brandon Mendoza, and he was murdered by an illegal alien. And so she was included in this roundtable, and she said the statement, and it stopped me in my tracks. She said that there are over 63,000 Americans have been killed since 9/11 by illegal aliens. Yeah, that's what she said at that event. She said it's a crimes spree being left unchecked, and these sanctuary state and city officials are putting American lives in harm every day. We have become collateral damage to their personal agenda. It's funny how you don't notice something until you're faced with the problem. Somebody mentioned to me the other day, they said, well, I don't see, they're talking about these Northern California ICE raids picking up illegals. Well, they think that they're just driving around looking for Mexicans and picking Mexicans up off the street. They're not doing that at all. They actually know who they're after. They know their names. They know where they live. It's just like a sweep when parole or probation does it. They know the names of the guys or gals, and they know where they hang out, and then they go pick them up because they're in violation of the law. In other words, they're not checking in for parole or probation. They failed a urine test, or they think they're involved in a new crime. So when they do these sweeps, it's just not some random deal where they're driving by Home Depot looking for some guys looking for work. That's not it at all. In fact, 81% of this recent sweep, 81% of over 140,000 people that were picked up, were all people that are criminals, and they needed to go to jail. So Mendoza said, we have become collateral damage to their personal agenda. That's the California legislators' personal agenda. So California is making it illegal for local law enforcement to report illegal immigrants. So I'm wondering I think if I was a supervisor on the city council, I would be having a face-to-face with my law enforcement official and determining whether we're going to stand with Trump or we're going to stand with Kevin De Leon. So here's the problem. Like, for instance, somebody said to me the other day, they said, well, in these sweeps, they looked at me and they kind of looked up in the air and they said, I don't know. We don't have any of those ICE people around here, do we? And I said, oh, we definitely do. In fact, I see them on Mondays and Tuesdays. They're working inside the Yuba County Jail, 2 or 3 of them full time. And they're working with nearly 200 detainees inside there. In fact, one of them the other day asked me if I'd do a class for those that are detained in E-Tank. And so it says sanctuary jurisdictions reject detainer requests from U.S. Immigration and Customs, that's ICE, and by refusing to share information relating to potentially removable aliens. So then it says detainers, the term detainer or detainers, are used to request that a state or local government enforcement agency, law enforcement agency, it's a detainer when they're requested to hold a criminal alien in local custody for up to 48 hours to allow ICE people to come and take them from that location and take them for removal proceedings from the United States of America. So what happens is local law enforcement arrests somebody. They get in trouble. They get a DUI. They beat up their wife. They shoot somebody. They stab somebody. And then they end up going through the jail proceedings, the prosecution, and then they determine what's going to happen to them. So when U.S. Immigration and Customs hears about it, they might issue a detainer saying, listen, don't let that person go. For instance, the other week or so ago, we were asked, I was asked to deliver a guy from Yuba County Jail down to San Francisco to Salvation Army Rehab. So we were going to pick him up at 3 in the morning. But one of the things that has to happen before they deliver them is they have to run a warrant check on them to see whether any other agency in the United States has their hooks in this person. Because if they do, they don't want to let them out and let them go to a rehab. They need to first let this other agency know they could have them if they want them. If they don't want them, then they go ahead and let them out. But they do a final warrant check before they let them walk out. So what this is saying to local jurisdictions is they're telling them, we don't want you to contact and work with U.S. immigration authorities. And so to me, what I'm just speaking about Yuba, Sutter counties there, all you out there that can hear this in Placer, Nevada, Colusa, et cetera, Butte, you guys ought to do the same thing. It's just like, hey, why don't you tell your law enforcement people, we got your back, and we're going to let the government know of California, we're not going down this socialism, create our own rules as we go deal. We're going to stick with the Constitution. So just a thought for you. But I get tired of starting stuff. Maybe the city council or the supervisors need to do the job they're getting paid for, eh? So, did you see, this is, rarely do you ever see something that the school district does that's right. And so thank God for the Board of Education at El Rancho Unified School District. They reached a unanimous decision. I thought, oh, they really got on the right page here. It's a Southern California group, El Rancho Unified. They fired Gregory Salcido, a history teacher. And what happened is this brave young guy, student, videoed on his phone, if you want to call it that, recorded, this teacher going off, slamming the military. And he says, think about people who who were over there. You're freaking stupid Uncle Louie. Well, that got my attention because he's trashing my name. You're freaking stupid Uncle Louie or whatever. You're dumb. I can't say it here on the radio. The big kahuna, I'll have a heart attack. Dumb S blank 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 S. Salcido could be heard saying in a January 25th tirade. They're not like high-level thinkers, They're not academic people. They're not intellectual people. They're the lowest of the low. This guy. I love this when you call these people on the carpet and then they want to backstep, right? They're all tough. They're all big talkers, got their chests puffed out, got their top button unbuttoned, talking to a bunch of 13-year-old kids, right? 14-year-old kids. Then one of them records them, gets it out to the media. All of a sudden they wet their depends. So Salcido apologized. Oh, how come you got some big apology now there, punk? Apologized to the city council in February and attempted to clarify his comments. I love these clarification. Well, I really didn't do it, but if I did anything that I didn't intend to do or didn't remember, I apologize for it. That's one of those deals. He had nothing to do, his comments had nothing to do with their moral character. No, just calling them stupid and morons and lowest of the low had nothing to do with their moral character. During a break, he told reporters that he believes the military is not the best option for his students. I thought, you know something? One of the best options for most students would be leave the government education system. That would be the best option, and go into a trade school and actually learn something where you can make a living instead of this stupid go to college thing. He goes on to say, that does not mean I'm anti-military, because I'm not. No, we just want to send a bunch of guerrillas out there with M16s. The student who secretly recorded Salcido, later identified as Victor Quiñones, told the Fox News person that this guy had a history of being anti-military. You know something? This guy's just like these typical Democrats. You catch them, and they're just like a convict. They lie to you, and they keep telling you it's sprinkling when they're peeing right on your boots, right? That's what they tell you. And they lie to you. It's like the kid you catch in the cookie jar. The lid's off. The kid's got crumbs on his hand and around his mouth, and the kid said, I've never seen a cookie. I don't even know what one looks like. But he's got crumbs, and he's got crumbs on his hands, crumbs around his mouth. That's like these Democrats. It says everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but at the same time they shouldn't be disrespecting the veterans who have. This is this youngster, Quiñones, the guy that took the video. He said this. I love this. I wish that more of these kids would do this. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but at the same time they shouldn't be disrespecting the veterans who fought for our rights, who give up their lives and do stuff that other people are not willing to do. Quiñones, who says he wants to be a Marine, said, thank you, Jesus, for that kid. So, John Kelly, Chief of Staff of the White House, said Salcido ought to go to hell. I thought, well, I like that, John Kelly. There you have it. So that's the rest of the story from down in Southern California School District. I don't know whether our friend got, our history teacher up there in Rockland got her job back or not. They were trying to get her to take her job back because I think they knew they were in trouble. And so she took a mental health day off. I thought, I worked for about 50 years. I never really got offered a mental health day. I thought most days I needed a mental health day off. I got positive and negative comments about my wonderful article in the Territorial Dispatch. You can still see it. You have to go back to the March 14th issue of the Territorial Dispatch. It's wonderfully recorded on the internet at territorialdispatch.biz. And then you just go look up what issue you want, 2018, March 14th. Homeless nonsense. And so I got a wonderful compliment from a former police officer who served with distinction there. He said, Lou, I don't always agree with your articles, but I thought you did a great job on the homeless nonsense. That meant a lot to me because law enforcement people, they know exactly what's going on with this homeless nonsense because they know these people by name. They know exactly what they're up to. They know all the foolishness that is being coddled, okay? So anyway, you can read all about it, called Homeless Nonsense, and the impact that this is happening on our community on Sundays starting April 1 Oh, it's from 1 to 3. It's a 2-hour show from 1 to 3. And it's called Yuba Sutter Political Spotlight. Yuba Sutter's Political Spotlight. So that should be chewy. There's a lot to spot around here. It's pretty easy spotting it around here, actually. It's just like people think they can cheat and lie and like screw everybody's wife and everything's going to be okay. From 1 to 3, it's going to be about the Constitution, government, and they're even going to cut out a little action for God. CGG, Constitution, Government, and God. So Tammy is bringing along a partner named Jason Reichard, right? It's going to be, they must sleep together, Tammy and Jason. So, and then Thomas Burns. Oh, then Bill Beeler's going to be involved. Bill Beeler's going to host it. So check it out. So that starts, let's see, it would be next Sunday, right? Not tomorrow, but next Sunday. So 1 to 3, check it out. You could call in. Should be a fun show and educational. And maybe if they get a lot of audience, I'll quit and I can go do something else on Saturdays. So also, hey, I just want to give you, we're down to the last few minutes here, and you can tell when you start hearing some music. But don't forget, if you've got a problem with security and you don't think the police can handle it, or they're not going to handle it, call Elite Universal Security at 749-0280. Sometimes, they'll just tell you to make a report online. Maybe you ought to just call Monty Hecker and have him come over there and fix your problem. Figure out why you're having all these problems. And check out, get signed up for these courses. If you want to learn how to taser somebody, don't be tasering yourself in the leg by accident. I had a friend one time shot himself in the foot. He thought he was a hot shot, pulled his gun out fast. He was a little drug dealer and shot himself right in the foot. Taser class and pepper spray class on April 7th. That's just around the corner. So you can call up and get signed up for that. Or April 15th, go get yourself a license. You can start on a Saturday, April 14th, and get your classroom in. And then April 15th, go out and shoot on the range. Go shoot something, blow something up. And then also, if you just want to get a renewal, you can go on April 15th. So a lot of good stuff going on right here in Yuba County. So 749-0280 and hook up with Monty Hecker. And you can go on that website, and there's classes going all the time. Every couple of weeks there's new classes starting, api-academy.com. Elite Universal Security, they also support the show here and help us keep on keeping on. So maybe you should talk to your local official, supervisor, city councilman, or woman, and say, hey, why don't we exempt ourselves from this sanctuary city and state stuff? Let's just make a stand for the Constitution. That shouldn't be hard since they swore to uphold it, right? That was the first thing they did. Once you get elected, then you can't really you can't consummate the deal. You can't consummate the deal until you take an oath to uphold the Constitution. If you're not going to uphold the Constitution, you can't take office. That's just the way that is. So if you already swore that, then it should be easy to say to Trump or to Jerry Brown and Kevin De Leon and Xavier Becerra that we don't want no more. We don't know no more of you guys. So it's over. You hear that? That's a bad sign right there. It means we're moving on. See you next week, live